Todd, thank you so much for being with us to discuss sleep.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. My favorite thing.
Sleep is such a necessity for overall health and wellness. And it's something that I have been dreaming about, I guess is the right term, for the past 12 years because I have 5 kids. So a lot of the tips that we share, I have to take with a grain of salt because when you have 5 kids and specifically a 1-year-old who still wakes up at night, it's a little easier said than done to get really good high quality sleep.
Can't fully relate to that. Can't fully relate, but we'll get there one day.
Totally. So share with me a little bit about your background and why you became so passionate about sleep.
Yeah, I mean, it really stemmed from my own training. So, I walked on Michigan State, meaning I basically wasn't good enough to play there and I didn't have a scholarship. And so, it kind of drove me into this obsession with human performance and just trying to get an edge on some of these guys that were much, much more talented and gifted than me. And from there, through different years of research, self-exploration, talking to different experts, sleep became this thing that kept coming up over and over again. And this is before there was a lot of really direct line data showing how sleep affected things like performance and fat loss and things like that. But just this underlying thing, it kept coming up. And, I slowly realized that if you were to pick one thing in someone's life that was going to have the biggest impact, sleep is that one thing. Make it kind of, it's like the silver bullet of health and wellness where it makes everything better. Every bucket of your life, as far as wellness goes, gets better when you're sleeping well. So when it came down to making the biggest impact on people and speaking and really, them walking away with some tangible things to make their life better, it became the most impactful thing I could think of. And, just hearing how changing and, increasing someone's quality of sleep impacts their life, it's very motivating and fulfilling. So that's kind of how I fell into it. But now I think, I've been doing this for maybe 7 years, really focusing on it. And the world's finally catching up and realizing this is super important. It's been cool to see. I'd say over the last couple of years, the movement's been pretty revolutionary.
Oh, man. So you started focusing on sleep around the time that I started my company. And for the past 7 years, we've had a priority pyramid at the Faster Way. The biggest priority in our pyramid is nutrition. We do intermittent fasting, carb cycling, we track our macros, and we eat whole foods. We're gluten-free, dairy-free. The second priority in our pyramid is sleep and rest. And many, many clients come to the Faster Way and they say, Amanda, I never expected that I would be so focused on active recovery, sleep, and rest in a weight loss program, in a fat loss program. But we really say, we're like, listen, we don't want you to be in the gym for hours at a time, doing fasting, which is an additional stressor on your body, raising your kids, thriving in your career, volunteering at church, plus not getting any sleep. We want you to sleep. We want you to do active recovery, and we want you to really rest. And so this month, we are going back to basics with our many, many tens of thousands of clients all over the country. And so sleep is just one of those topics I really wanted to take a deep dive on, because sometimes it's better if you understand the why behind the what, instead of me just saying, hey, you need XYZ amount of, hours of sleep and we want you to prioritize this. So I'm just going to dive into some really specific questions. But first, tell me a little bit more about your athletic career. You shared that you were a walk-on at Michigan State. I went to school in Ohio, so we're not going to talk about that. But
it's like we share a mutual hatred for University of Michigan, so we can bond over.
Oh my gosh, hilarious. So share with me a little bit about your athletic career, and then we'll dive into some questions on sleep.
Yeah, so I came out of high school. I had no offers, not one school, not even Division II school, but I had talked to a couple of coaches at Michigan State, and it was like my lifelong dream to play there. So I basically came to the conclusion that if I didn't try to do that, I would regret it later in my life. It's kind of like the guide or the compass for my entire life. If I'm going to regret something, later in life, I tend to go try to do whatever it is I'm going to regret. So I ended up walking on. When I first got there, I was too small, slow, weak, all of the above, not good. Almost quit the 4th day. Horrible, hardest thing I've ever done. But, as I put the time and work in and really, started to acclimate, I realized I could play there. And I ended up starting at fullback, having a really great career. we won Big Ten championships, and I, got the opportunity to play in the NFL for a short time with at that time, St. Louis Rams. So it was short-lived. I was pretty banged up and injured and a whole bunch of stuff going on. But even to get to that point, it was kind of like a fairy tale story. So I got to accomplish almost everything that, I think I exceeded my physical abilities. I overachieved for what even I thought I could do. So I think that's all you can ask for.
Now, when you were in college and post-college, were you prioritizing sleep already?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have the information that necessarily was out today, but I was conscious of it. And most guys would maybe go out and not think of anything. Like anytime we had a workout or something important, I would prioritize sleep. So it was always in the back of my mind. And again, like when the early stages of research was coming out, like I was a nerd back then. I was reading all these research studies and I knew I was starting to understand the impact. So I actually would prioritize it. We were pretty tame because of it. My class took care of themselves better than most, I would say, especially from a college perspective. So I tried to. And then what was interesting is, ironically, I guess I hadn't really thought about this till now. In 2012, when I was with the Rams, it was the most traveled team the NFL's ever had because we were playing in Europe, in London for the first time. So now they do that every year, but we also were in the same division as the 49ers. And so that's a big trip. So that team was expected to travel more than any other team had ever traveled in the NFL. And we actually brought in this company. It was like a sleep company, and everyone did sleep studies. And they brought in this huge RV with bedrooms. And, it was pretty wild. It just shows how innovative the resources in the NFL is, because this is 2012. And they're realizing, okay, we have to travel this much. We need to get the players' sleep under control. And that kind of also accelerated my learning. But looking back, doing a sleep study in a RV in an unfamiliar place, probably not the best data, just because when you take someone out of their environment, a lot of the data is skewed. Yeah. I mean, the thought process is pretty amazing for over 10 years ago.
Yeah, wow, I love that. So when I was in college, sleep was an extremely important priority to me, to the extent that I decided to become an RA, a resident assistant. I think by my sophomore year, I was an RA for 3 years, just so I could tell my hall to quiet down, because
You're like a cool RA, or you like a strict RA? There's that. You can be the best friend, or you can be like,
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. I was really cool until 10 p.m. And then I was in bed.
That means you weren't.
I have to say, you'd have to ask the girls who are in my hall. Some of them are even faster way coaches to this day. So I was well liked, but I really valued my sleep because I would wake up at 6 a.m, maybe earlier, to work. I had 5 jobs in college. I worked my way through college. I was grinding like crazy. I was working at the gym. I was a trainer. I was working for a financial planner. So I would just, really have to go hard during the day. And by 10, I'm like, if I don't get my sleep, then things aren't going to be good. And I played soccer 1 year and was still, very active throughout college as well. But since I've had my kids, it's been harder and harder and harder to get good quality sleep. And I literally, you can see it in the video, I have an eye that since I've had kids just won't open as wide because I'm just always tired.
Yeah.
People listening can't see it. People listening, hey, if you're listening, watch me on Instagram. You'll notice it. Since I've had kids, one of my eyes will not open it. Listen to me. Last night, my 1-year-old, my baby who just turned 1, he's up at 4. He's furious. He wants snuggles. He's up at 5. And then, when you have kids, even if you do go to sleep at a decent hour, you're just worried about your kids all night long. You can't explain it. You can't understand it unless you're a mom. But,
No, I'm not. We want to have kids soon. And I can't lie. That stuff does terrify me. And it's almost like ignorance is bliss. If I didn't know the impacts it had, it probably wouldn't terrify me as much. But I'm also just someone that I need 8 hours. I know I'm not going to feel good if I don't get it.
Yeah. I wore an Aura ring for years, but anytime I'm at the end of a pregnancy or recently postpartum, meaning 18 months or below, I don't wear it because it will bark at me every morning. 48 is your sleep score. You need and I'm like, I don't want to see this data right now. It is making me feel worse about my life. So I'm not wearing my Oura ring. I'll start wearing it in a few months, maybe if Ty sleeps through the night consistently. But children are wonderful. I don't want to scare you away from having children. You will be a little sleep deprived. So you said you need 8 hours. I need 9. But what is the recommendation? Everybody's wondering, how many hours do men need? How many hours do women need? Tell us the secret.
Yeah, from a strictly medical perspective, 7 hours is like the absolute, right? So, meaning, there's no way you're probably functioning at optimal levels under 7 hours. So, every time somebody hears that, they think, I'm shooting for 7 hours. Like that's the actual lowest end, right? So, then numbers kind of floats around, like what's the optimal amount? And actually, 2 studies have come out recently about that. One from Harvard, one from Japan. And basically what they did was they took people, they let them get acclimated. They had them sleep in the lab for a couple of weeks, and they were able to sleep up to 14 hours. So basically just sleep as long as you want. And they had no idea how long they had been sleeping. They just kind of let their body do its thing. And it was substantially longer than previously thought. So it was about 8.6 hours that most people needed for optimal sleep, which is, that's a big number.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing was almost everybody in the study slept over 7 hours a night leading up to that point. And when they had the ability to sleep 14 hours, most of them slept over 10 hours the first few nights because they were chronically sleep deprived, because they weren't hitting that optimal number. So I think the stigma around sleeping is wild. I think it's starting to change. It's still, a work in progress, but the whole rise and grind mentality is starting to shift. And, sleep isn't something that's lazy. And I would argue it's actually the opposite. I had this conversation with people, and I think it's really hard to fully buy into this. But, if you want to be like the best mom, the best student, the best athlete, the best spouse, husband, whatever it is, whatever you do, if you have the ability and you have the resources and the time to get, 9 hours of sleep, if you're not doing that, if you're not prioritizing it, you're kind of accepting the fact that you're going to be a lesser version of yourself. So in a lot of ways, it's a very selfless thing to do, right? Because the hours that you are awake, you're going to be able to show up at such a higher level, and levels that people don't realize, from a emotional intelligence perspective, like reading people's facial expressions, things like that, subconscious things that people don't often associate with sleep. All those things get better. So I think a lot of times, especially, I hear this a lot from mothers, like people feel like they can't prioritize themselves, or they feel like sleep is prioritizing themselves, when really, it's somewhat the opposite. It doesn't mean you have to wake up and only sleep 5 hours and constantly doing things for other people, because if you do sleep and take care of yourself, I think the hours that you're actually awake, you'll be functioning at such a higher level. Your overall output will be higher, even though it's in a shorter amount of time. And they've done studies with that in the workplace where, people who work 40 hours a week actually get more overall work done than somebody that works 55 hours, because they're so much more efficient within those 40 hours. So I think efficiency is kind of the name of the game. How do you get the most out of the time that you're allotted?
Yeah, I love that study. Very interesting. I think bioindividuality is so key. And also there are differences between men and women. I need more sleep than my husband. Now, keep in mind, he's very chill. He's very, very laid back. And when his head hits the pillow, he is out. 20 minutes later, he's talking in his sleep. He's walking in his sleep, and he's disrupting my sleep because I'm literally, right when I'm about to fall into a deep sleep, he starts talking. He's going through the drive-thru. He's ordering a cheeseburger without onions. He's literally walking around the room, rooting through my jewelry case. He's trying to open the window. He's taking artwork off the wall. I probably need to set up a video camera and just show some of these things that he does.
That sounds really
for years, I've kicked him at different points in different houses. My listeners know I tend to move every other year. In certain houses, when there were rooms available for him, I'd have him sleep in a different room, because that's when I can get some really good sleep, is when he's not.
A lot of couples are doing that nowadays.
Yeah,
a lot of people are doing
I need to do that again. In our current house that we're living in, we don't have a guest room, but he doesn't need as much sleep as I do. We go to bed at the same time every night, and he's up around 5:15. I am not. I am still sleeping because I've been up. I've in my life only slept through the night once or twice. And both times were when I was in Costa Rica, which for whatever reason in Costa Rica, I sleep incredible. And I wake up every morning at 5:18, right when the sun is rising. I feel more energized than I ever have.
What are you doing in Costa Rica?
The sun sets earlier, but I'm also outside more. So I think part of it is I'm outside.
Are you there on vacation?
I'm usually on vacation, but still working. But the stress hits you different in Costa Rica. I can't explain it. It hits you different. I'm outside more. I'm still working, but I'm in nature. The sun sets earlier. I tend to go to bed a little bit earlier because of that. I get probably just better quality sleep, and I'm up 5:18 a.m. feeling awesome. I have an offer in on 2 different houses right now in Costa Rica to live there for Q1. Yeah.
Okay. How are you to move to
That's
Costa
the
Rica?
plan. That's literally the plan. I was going to actually fly there later today to look at one of the houses. But anyways, Brandon doesn't need as much sleep as I do. And so I think that the research is good, and we hear the studies, and we hear, 7 to 9 hours. But listen, if you are a female and you're going 120 miles per hour during the day, you might need more sleep than me and even Todd, here. You definitely probably need more sleep than Brandon. But then we all have that grandma or that crazy uncle who only slept 3 hours a night and lived to 97. So how do you explain that?
I will say the human body is extremely adaptable. And I think that's the thing people have to keep in mind when they have a tough night's sleep, because there's so much data coming out. The people who are into sleep, oftentimes they get so granular with it, which can also be harmful. So the body is extremely adaptable. It's kind of like when somebody smokes cigarettes and lives to be 100 years old. There's outliers, but it's one of those things where there's not really a benefit in risking, being one of those outliers. You'd much rather play your cards safe. And yeah, like you said, everybody's different, right? So the reasons why person to person things vary, it could depend on a lot of things, but the biggest thing is just, having some reflection and understanding how you feel and trust yourself. Your body's going to tell if you're tired or not. That's not a false symptom. Just listen. And if you wake up refreshed, great. If you don't, that's something to consider and actually listen to, not just shrug it off if something's going on. The one thing I'll say is, statistically, a lot of times we'll hear people, I think 6 hours is always the number. People are always like, I sleep 6 hours and I'm good. I'm fine. And statistically, right, if you were on a Southwest flight, I always say Southwest because it's the 737, they're the same exact plane, all of them. So one person on that entire flight would statistically be able to function at 6 hours of sleep. And the rest would not be functioning at optimal level.
Got it.
When people tell me they'll give it 6, the chances of that, if you were to get on that flight and that person's the one person that gets picked out of the crowd, I would highly doubt it. I think you're just acclimated to functioning at a lower level, right? So, and you can get used to almost anything. And that doesn't mean that the symptoms will necessarily come out as these massive, crazy disease symptoms. It could be subtle, but over time, that stuff kind of chips away at you.
Yeah. Let's talk about the difference between deep sleep and REM sleep, because I think a lot of us are aware of REM, but we're not necessarily aware or tracking deep. So what is the difference and what is the value?
Yeah. So deep sleep is the most restorative for your body, your muscles, your tissue, physically regenerating, right? From mostly physical tasks. It's the deepest stage of non-REM sleep, right? So that's also where your brain pumps this cerebral spinal fluid. So they just did live MRIs for the first time in 2019, and they showed this fluid. It's not blood. It's this spinal fluid literally pumps through your brain and flushes all the cellular waste that you develop throughout the day, which the waste is these proteins that can clump up that cause Alzheimer's, dementia, all these different things. So if you're not getting the deep, that's one of our main cleaning mechanisms for our brain is happening during deep sleep. And then on the flip side, REM sleep often comes right after deep sleep. And that's when our brain's the most active. And that is, rapid eye movements, what REM stands for. But literally our eyes are just moving kind of side to side. Our breathing muscles are the only ones that aren't paralyzed. You're paralyzed, but that's when we're dreaming. Our brain's extremely active. And that's kind of where we develop it's kind of the more, I would say, mental health side of sleep. It's where we balance our mood. a lot of things as far as motivation and our mindset are developed, and on these wide spanning neural connections are made. So think about deep sleep is more like physical regeneration sleep, and REM sleep is more like your mental health spectrum.
Interesting.
Sleep. And then they're different, and one is not necessarily better than the other. You need both. And majority of the deep sleep comes in the first half of the night, and then as the night progresses, you get less and less deep sleep and more REM sleep. It kind of phases and changes throughout the night.
And how much of each do we need?
So the hard part with that is I usually kind of shy people away from that question, because each are about 25% of the night, give or take, but everyone's different. The other thing is a lot of the trackers are, they're not dialed in so specifically that it's worth really looking at that much. As long as you're relatively close, it's not some crazy number that's off. You're probably in a good place as long as you're hitting that quantity. So the quantity and the time in which you go to bed and wake up, those are the gold standards. That's what you should be focusing on. But yeah, it's about a quarter. Your lighter stages of sleep are about half, stage 1 and 2. Deep sleep is about a quarter. REM sleep is about a quarter. But everyone's different. Those proportions can shift depending on, especially for women, different times of the month. Guys, depending on your exercise, when you exercise even can change things. But the consistency in bedtime is most important, because the weird thing is, like, let's say you stay up 3 hours later, right? You stay up late on the weekend. What happens is you don't start in those sleep cycles like normal. You don't go in the light stages of sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and start getting that deep sleep. Your circadian rhythm, your brain kind of jumps right into that more REM sleep, because it's based on your normal bedtime, not on it doesn't start at stage 1. It starts when that normal bedtime hits. So if you stay up super late, you skip that deep sleep, that physical regeneration sleep, and you only get the REM sleep, and vice versa. If you wake up super early, you're skipping out on that REM sleep and only getting the deep sleep. So there's no way to skin it. I always compare it to like a band where you need all these different stages of sleep, right? It's kind of like instruments. You have, the drums and the guitar. The guitar is not more important than the drums, and you can't make up for not having enough drums with more guitar. Same with sleep. You can't make up for deep sleep with more REM sleep, and vice versa. So you need them all. And the only way to make sure you have a good balance is consistency.
Yeah. Okay. I have to say, I met you at essentially a summer camp for adults several weeks ago. And I did prioritize my sleep that weekend and ended up sleeping incredible because I wasn't home with my kids. The first night, which is before this big 4-hour physical event that we had to do, I went to bed probably at 9:00, slept awesome, woke up feeling like a killer the next day. And then that night, I go to bed 9:00. You stayed up till probably 1 a.m. So, I'm the winner here, I suppose, because I got that deep sleep, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Sleep himself was up till 1 a.m.
Was that after the race? Yeah, we definitely let it rip that night. But I think, sometimes people always ask me, they're like, are you super dialed in? And a lot of people think I don't drink alcohol, but I'll have some drinks sometimes. And I always tell people social connections in relationships are the most important part of longevity statistically. And so if I'm going to have a good time and I have people I care about around me, I'll stay up and have a good time and have a few cocktails. But you have to live life a little bit.
Todd doesn't need no deep sleep. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how sleep can support fitness goals, because you're an athlete. Yeah. My clients who are listening, they are athletes. If you're listening and I'm not an athlete, yes, you are. You're doing athletic things. You are training on a consistent basis. Yeah. So how does sleep support our fitness goals in particular?
I think the way to look at it is really sleep's more of a precursor to the day as opposed to recovery. And I think that shift in how you think about it is the best way to have it impact fitness. Because if you look at all the studies that come out, it's really how having most of the stuff we get is not how you recover. It's how having a poor night's sleep prior affects the next day. That's what we're seeing. So think of it as the launching pad for the day coming up, because they've done studies. The chances people work out, their activity level goes up substantially, 8 hours compared to 5 hours. People do more steps. Their chances they do an actual workout go up about 25%. If you're underslept, you'll eat about 400 more calories statistically, just because people don't realize, sleep plays a really important role in our metabolic processes. Throughout the night, we burn different substrates, carbs, proteins, fats. It also normalizes our hunger hormones. So when you're underslept, like you're craving sodium way more and fats way more. So that just results in, higher calorie intake. And so just right there, when you talk about prioritizing nutrition, sleep really sets the foundation for what you're craving, because from a nutritional perspective, when you're fighting your physiology, that's a tough battle to win. You're going to win that battle for a little while with just being motivated and being driven, but eventually that's going to chip away at you. So by getting the right amount of sleep, you're making those decisions from a fitness perspective and a nutritional perspective easier as you go, and you're building momentum as opposed to having to fight those cravings throughout the day. Day after day, that gets really, really difficult. There was a point where I was almost 300 pounds, and I've been in that place where, it almost seems too hard to reverse. But, when you start setting yourself up for success with sleep, those decisions get easier. And then every day you kind of, count as a victory, and you stack them on top of each other. And then momentum's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing as an athlete, in a game, in a sport. It's a powerful thing in a weight loss journey. It's a real thing. So I think using sleep to kind of get that ball rolling is a great tool.
Yeah. Lack of sleep can disrupt leptin and ghrelin levels, which is going to create these cravings, and not to mention the cortisol levels. And then sleeping also helps get rid of inflammation. So it helps our body get rid of inflammation and the muscle recovery and everything, which is really important. Now, I have, plenty of listeners who are female, and hormone imbalances are disrupting sleep. And I have to say, I shared this on a client training yesterday. Monday morning, I was planning to wake up early and get my workout in. I had a very, very busy week planned, team retreat, lots of meetings and important things. And so I set my alarm. Well, I'm on my period this week, and so I don't sleep as well the first day or two, or even kind of the day before. And so Sunday night, I was up quite a bit from probably like 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And instead of waking up super early, I decided to cancel my alarm, sleep in a little bit, get that extra rest, and then fit in a workout later in the day, quick 30-minute hit. And so I think, ladies listening, we have to be very sensitive to how our hormones might be impacting our sleep. And it is what it is. Like it's, I wish I would have been able to sleep great Sunday into Monday. I didn't. So instead of waking up at 5:30 or 6, I say, let me go ahead and cancel the alarm. And sometimes that's the better choice. Sometimes it is better to say, I'm going to prioritize this sleep over I'm going to get in a workout and grind and hustle and blah, blah, blah. And so I think, for my ladies listening, and we can bring somebody in too for my listeners who maybe is very in tune with kind of that menopausal insomnia, which is a very, very real thing. But share with us maybe what are some of your top tips for getting a better night's sleep? What are the 5 top tips?
Well, I think the number one tip is just having some empathy for yourself. Like you said, if you can't sleep throughout the night, like you said, I would prioritize the sleep, because even if you can't get the workout later in the day, your body's going to be functioning at such a more efficient pace, and you're going to be burning the right types of fuels, craving the right types of foods. So even from a weight loss perspective or a fitness perspective, it's still going to be a better choice, I think. But I think my top tips are really to do with your relationship with sleep, and I guess more the mindset shift. So one, just thinking about it as the launching pad for the day. So starting your day really the night prior and thinking about that night's sleep at the start of your day, prioritizing those hours, and then working your schedule based on that. So making, building in the amount of sleep you need, and then creating your schedule off that and making that non-negotiable. And the second thing is not worrying about it too much and understanding the difference between, some of these stress management tactics and actually sleep issues. Because a lot of times people think because they don't sleep, there's an issue with their sleep, and they're throwing supplements at it, and they're worrying about it. They're getting sleep trackers, they're getting beds, all these different things. But really, I think shifting your perspective and thinking about, okay, when I wake up in the middle of the night, where does my mind go? Why can I not sleep? What am I thinking about? What are those thoughts? And addressing those issues, because oftentimes people come to me and it has nothing to do with sleep. and everything to do with stress management, the things they have going on in their life, and developing some strategies to overcome those anxieties. So I think really looking in the mirror and understanding what's affecting your sleep is usually a great thing, because oftentimes it has nothing to do with it. And then just letting your body do what it's supposed to do, like relax. If you can't sleep in the middle of the night, you're going to be fine. Get up, take your mind off it. Don't just sit there and ruminate about it. Whenever you're thinking about sleep, it's going to make your sleep worse. Like they did studies on counting sheep, and they found that counting sheep actually makes you stay up longer because you're focused on falling asleep.
No.
So, you don't want to focus on that too much. If you're getting too into a tracker, don't wear the tracker. Like, don't think about it. So I think having empathy, you're going to be fine if you don't sleep. People have had kids, they sleep 1 hour. Don't stress about it. I would say tangible tips, I think temperature is a low-hanging fruit, right? Having a cool room, really easy. I think blackout shades, sleep mask or blackout shades is really easy, and people don't realize how much having a fully blacked out, like fully blacked out room makes a difference. And I would say light, just being conscious of light. So a lot of people think that like people don't turn the lights off until they get in the bedroom. They think, okay, let's go to bed, lights off. But even having a gradual shift in the living room, let's say you're hanging out after dinner, start tapering the lights down, making it dim. Like that can have a big impact. Bright lights right before bed, it's not just having them. It's not a yes or no binary thing like re-expose the screens and bright lights before bed. It's how long. Like even 1 hour has much less impact on sleep than 2 hours. So just being aware, and as the night starts to fade, tapering down the lights throughout your entire house as opposed to just your bedroom can be really useful. And a lot of times people are surprised at how much faster they're able to sleep because of that.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I have blackout shades. I wear a sleep mask. Yeah. I keep my room to about 69 or 70 degrees. But I have to share one tip that people are not going to like. They are not going to like this tip. So I, about 3 months ago, decided to experiment with decaf coffee instead of caffeinated coffee in the morning. And I have to say it. I feel better. Yeah. I'm sleeping better. I don't have my energy crash in the afternoon either. I'm drinking Purity decaf coffee. It still tastes fine. It's not giving me that caffeine boost in the morning, but I shouldn't have to need that. I shouldn't need it. If I just slept for 9 hours, I should be able to wake up and just get moving without drinking 3 cups of coffee. So that's something that has changed the game for me more recently with sleep is no caffeine, just no caffeine. I mean, I hate to say it, but here we are. I just said it.
I mean, I think caffeine is like, I'm not actually saying, I don't really coach people not to have caffeine, but I think awareness around the amount and the timing is crucial because caffeine stays in your system way longer than people think. 6 hours, it takes 6 hours usually to metabolize half the amount you ingest. So even if you have let's say you have a medium cup of coffee at 1 p.m. from Starbucks, which isn't like outrageous. I would say a lot of people listening, potentially they do that all the time. You're still going to have over a Red Bull's worth of caffeine in your system at 11 p.m. And that's at 1 p.m. That's pretty early. So I think that just being aware of when you're having it, like 200 milligrams is the average recommended dose for a lot of positive health benefits. But just having that earlier in the day, as opposed to like spread out, can be useful. But like you said, if you're sleeping well and you don't need it, don't feel like you have to have it. It's almost like, well, I mean, I always refer stuff to football, but like it's kind of like a play action pass in football, or a trick play. Let's say if you run it every play, it doesn't really work. But if you ever hold coffee off for times where maybe you do need a little boost, maybe you're doing a presentation or you have something important at work, and then you use it for those situations to get a little boost, it works way better.
That's so
but when
true.
It becomes a daily habit, it can be. And then honestly, a lot of people who drink caffeine, if you've been drinking it for a long time, it really doesn't do anything. It's more psychological. So I think having it here and there can be fine, and there are positive health benefits, but I think being aware of it and then use it for when you need it because it'll work way better.
That is so true. Yeah. And I've been doing like kind of half calf before an important meeting, or if I do, I was up extra last night, I'll have like half cup. And I do feel it. Like it hits different when you're not drinking it every
Yeah, but if you're doing a routine, you don't feel it at all.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. 100%.
It actually works pretty well when you're not used to it. It's like, whoa, like I forgot how this is.
Okay, last thing, and then we'll wrap up. What is your opinion on taping your mouth when you sleep?
I mean, I'm a huge fan. I'm a big enough fan that I started my own company that makes masks. So,
Tell us about it, Todd. Tell us about it.
that was a self-serving company, innovation, but it changed my life. So I've been taping my mouth for about 2 years. First night I did it, I didn't tell Katie, my wife, that I was doing it. She came home from a trip and I just had my mouth taped. She was like,
"Oh my gosh!"
So freaked out because this is before it was like kind of mainstream,
That's so funny.
Never a great company out there for just quality of the materials and the adhesive. It's on your face for a long time, so that was super important, and we wanted to nail that. But I did a at-home sleep study 2 weeks ago. I didn't wear the mouth tape, and I've slept well my whole life, I thought, and never had any issues. And I was diagnosed with mild sleep apnea from not wearing mouth tape, and I would never know that because you only have your own perspective with sleep. Like you could say I sleep well, but that's only relative to you because that's all you know. But then I did the mouth tape and it completely eliminated the apnea symptoms. I did another study. So it's pretty wild, just because there's a lot of philosophies. I've talked to orthodontists, I've talked to doctors, a lot of people, just the way that they used to do orthodontics and the shape of the mouth. And also there's breastfeeding. A lot of, people my age didn't breastfeed as much. Your tongue doesn't develop in the same way to create a seal at night, but there's a lot of reasons for it. But regardless, you should be breathing through your nose at night, right? And if you're not, you're breathing through your nose, there's tons of benefits from, moisturizing the air, filtering the air, bringing more oxygen, putting your nervous system in the correct state. So mouth tape is a really easy way to ensure that. And it, made such a big impact on my life that I had to spread the word because some of the feedback we get is incredible. And some of the data we see from people doing it and not doing it. If you notice you're breathing through your mouth at night, it's something to definitely experiment with.
Okay, I'm going to try it. Yeah, for sure.
We're coming out with pink mouth tape next month, and we're going to donate 10% of profits to breast cancer
I love
research.
that.
So
that's great. Very, very cool. Okay, I'll get some pink mouth tape and I'll try that. So Todd, where can we find you online?
So just on Instagram is where I'm most accessible, just Todd Anderson 42. But dreamrecovery.io is the sleep product company. And yeah, if anyone has any sleep questions on Instagram, I love helping people out. I try to respond as much as I can. And even simple personal questions about sleep, I love to help. So feel free to contact me.
Awesome. Todd, thank you so much. This was really informative and it helped us as we take a deep dive on our foundational concepts and really kind of get back to basics at Faster Way. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.